Zach Miller, you hero, man. You champion, second place here at the 2023 UTMB, running just under 20 hours in true Zach Miller fashion. They forced you to hammer all the way to the finish line. First things first, congratulations. How are you feeling?
Thank you. Yeah, feeling tired and a bit sore, but yeah, overall pretty good.
Yeah. So starting with your training before we start talking about the race, you said at the finish line in your interview that you sort of let go of the idea of tracking, following, and prescribing your own training in miles, and instead you focused on vertical. I'd love for you to say a little bit more about that and how you think in retrospect it played out.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess to start, I started my year training for Tarawera, which is a drastically different race. It's a pretty runnable 100-miler down in New Zealand. So that race is in February. So through the winter, through like the holidays, through the winter, I did a lot of like, I was very mileage based. Did a lot of like road running, bike path running, like fairly mellow, like trail running in Bend, Oregon. Still did some vert and stuff, but just kind of started there, building that base for Tarawera. Then raced Tarawera. Then after Tarawera, I feel like I was still a bit mileage focused, but also paid attention to the vert a bit more as I got ready for World Championships, which was gonna be I think it was like a 55 mile race, something like that with
like 20,000.
I think it was like 53 miles, and it was like 22,000 feet of vert, something like that. So,
Sick.
So very vert heavy race. So I definitely upped the vert training for that. But I didn't really shift into this like vert specific mindset until after that was over. Yeah. Going in, I think after training all those miles for Tarawera and everything, I was just kind of like, you know what? Like, I think I'm kind of done with miles. Like, I think I feel satisfied.
Yeah.
I don't feel the need to go out and run a specific mileage. And I think vert is like what is more intriguing to me right now and what seems like would be helpful for UTMB. So I just went into this like vert mindset of like, basically if I ran it, it was steep. That was pretty much it.
Yeah. And it clearly translated to, it seems like you unlocked the code here at UTMB this year. And maybe that was a reflection of a different training philosophy.
Yeah. I mean, you know, can I ever say for certain, you know, not necessarily, but yeah, I think it's easy to get a perception of what you think an appropriate amount of training is, whether it's mileage or hours or vert. And I think especially if you haven't really done like vert heavy training, you know, like you kind of grow to what's around you, right? So if everybody around you is just running like 20,000 feet of vert or less, or is like, oh man, I did 25,000 feet of vert this week, that was a lot. Yeah. And that's your perception of a lot. Yeah. There could be people, you know, somewhere else, like maybe in Europe, training like way more. Yeah. And it's just blowing what you're doing out of the water. And you don't really like, it can take time to maybe like sort of figure that out and just sort of like redefine what a lot
is. And you definitely redefined. I'd encourage everybody to go look at your Strava account. Anyway, talking about the race so that we don't spend a million hours here with you today, I'm sure you have a lot to do. Eventually it became a race of 3 somewhere during the night where you and Tom and Jim sort of separated from the pack. Tell us about that and also the moment that you described in your post-race interview on the live stream where Jim sort of put in a little bit of a surge on you going over the pyramids and Tom dropped back, what your mindset was like there.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of comical how similar the race was playing out to last year's race. I mean, like last year, Jim and I like kind of hung back a little on the way to Les Houges, then caught up to the lead pack on that first climb. And then, you know, coming out of Les Contamines and Notre Dame, it broke down to a pack of just me and Jim and Tom, which was like pretty much the exact pack we had last year, save for Killian.
Yep.
And just like last year, went up Col de Sin together, went down to the pier. It was visibility was super low in Italy.
Yeah.
Like we could barely see a thing over there. Like, you know, you're trying to decide whether or not like you should actually turn your headlamp down, like when you're driving with your high beams and your low beams and fog. So yeah, anyways, but like we were up the col together and then went down to the base of the pyramids. And the question there in my mind was like, okay, what's going to happen is like last year, it felt like Jim kind of surged there. It was like, is he going to surge up the pyramids? But he didn't really seem to. Like he went up them strong, but he didn't seem to be, he was chatty. So he didn't seem to be trying to drop us. And when we got over, Jim is very good going down the pyramids. And last year, him and Killian just like ran away from me and Tom there. This year was similar, but I could keep Jim's glimpses of Jim's headlamp in sight. So I was like, okay, he's not that far. Like he's owning me on this technical terrain, but like he's not all that far ahead. And we all left the aid station down there at Lac Combal probably like 30 seconds to a minute apart.
Yeah.
And yeah, it did kind of feel like Jim was making a little move. I don't know if he was making a move so much as he was just better. He's maybe just better on that terrain.
Yeah.
But he did get a little separation. I went off to kind of try to catch up. Yeah. And that's where Tom, like on the climb there after Lac Combal, that's where Tom, fell back.
Right. He ultimately dropped in Courmayeur.
Yeah, which was unfortunate. But yeah, then I ran into Courmayeur.
You did a 70-second crew exchange in Courmayeur.
Yeah, I guess it was efficient. I mean, I don't want to neglect an aid station and misuse it, but I also don't want to use it more than I need to. So if things are going well, I just kind of go in, get what I need, and leave. Like,
officially 90-second crew exchange there in Courmayeur, which is incredibly efficient. So eventually, you know, you're sort of sitting just behind Jim on the Italian side. And I saw a replay of you going through Arnuva in the lead. So I'd love for you to describe the moment where you overtook Jim and realized that the elastic had broken and that you were now the clear leader of the race. Because it seemed to me in Arnuva, again, you were practicing this aid station efficiency, but it felt like you had a sense of urgency to you of like, okay, this is my moment now at the head of the race.
Yeah, I don't feel like I was like trying to make this big move at that point in the race. What happened was coming out of Courmayeur, Jim was just a little bit, he left slightly before me. I stopped at a fountain on the way out of town to like cool off and get water and just kind of take care of myself before going up the bulk of the climb. And so I lost sight of Jim. So then I just kind of fell into my own little rhythm up the climb. And it was actually really nice. Big thing I changed this year was I actually intentionally took caffeine at Courmayeur because I usually struggle like in that. It's like 2:30, 3 a.m. in the morning. It's a hard climb out. And then it's this beautiful rolling balcony trail where if you have legs and energy, you can just roll. Rip. And I always just feel terrible.
Dude, remember I passed you on the climb to the Bertone in 2017.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
And it's so depressing up there because you're like, I should be able to just roll up here. And like, you feel so awful. So yeah, I took caffeine and I found this really nice, I didn't see Jim at the aid at the top of the climb, but I just started going. I was like, okay, let's find my rhythm. I found this really nice rhythm and I just started going. And then before I knew it, or after a while, I saw Jim's light and then it kept getting closer. And I caught him like basically right at Bonatti, like right, just like below it.
Yeah. When you climb up there, short little climb.
Yeah. You kind of come across the grass and then you just go right up to it. And so I caught him basically right there. And then we ran together for a little bit. And then after a while, he was just gone. Like he just wasn't there anymore. And again, it wasn't like making this huge move. It was more just like, I'm in this good flow and I'm going to keep it going.
Yeah.
If I can take the lead, that's like cool, but it's not like I'm sprinting. I'm just kind of like going at my pace.
Yeah.
And the funny thing was I run with a headlamp with a battery that's in my pack. So I have a cord going from my lamp to my battery. Yep. And I had the cord a bit loose. So like all night, it just kept smacking my back and it sounds just like someone
running behind you.
And so like, and it was doing this like all night and you would think I would have just stopped and changed it. But like part of the reason I didn't, cause I was like, well, that's actually kind of good because it's like motivating. It always makes me think there's somebody behind me. So it keeps me going. But when I passed Jim, I was running for a while. I was like, I couldn't tell if he was still behind me or not. And wasn't looking back. I was like, I don't know if that's Jim's footsteps or if that's the headlamp.
Just assume that's Jim, right?
The headlamp cord. Yeah. And I finally looked back at one point and he wasn't there at all. I was like, oh, it's just the headlamp cord.
Yeah.
And then we went down to the aid there at the base of Grand Col Ferret. And I just went through nice and efficient and I was getting this little bit of a gap on Jim. Yeah. And
it felt to me like, I mean, just like observing your body language, like you were feeling good and you understood like, okay, I've got separation on Jim. Yeah. Tom's no longer in the picture, which maybe you didn't realize at that point, but you know, you're at the lead of the UTMB going up, you know, a critical climb 100 kilometers into the race at the Grand Col Ferret. It was then about 10 minutes by the time you got to La Folie, 10 or 11 at Champay-Lac too. And at Champay, again, you come into the aid station and say something to the effect of, let's be efficient here, you know, understanding that, you know, any minute spent in there is a minute that takes longer to get to the finish line. Anyway, so leaving Champay, of course, that's the sort of critical final 50K of the race. I guess just kind of walk us through how it played out between there and the finish, where Jim eventually overtook you and what that moment was like. Yeah,
Again, I just had this long stretch leading up to Champay where I just felt really good. And I was waiting for Champay. I was like, I'm pulling away like naturally. It's just kind of happening. Like I'm going to let it, hopefully it continues. But I'm really waiting for Champay. I'm trying to get to Champay nice and smooth. In my mind, race starts in Champay. And then we're going to go from there. So I mean, the climb to Champay was great.
You looked so good. Oh my God.
Like I felt so good, and I got to Champay and was good, and I left feeling really real good, and but from there to the finish, I felt really good. On the bovine climb is kind of funny. It starts like really mellow. It's actually like downhill into it, and then it's got this really mellow like cruiser runnable grade for like the first, I don't know, quarter to half. And then it has this like ugly, just like steep, like mix of rock and dirt and sun exposed trail at the end. That's like the actual bovine climb. Yeah. And I felt really good on all the runnable bits leading up. And then when I got to that steep section, I mean, I was moving, but I didn't feel great. I didn't feel great. And when I got up, like through the cows, and as I was cresting, I realized Jim and actually Germain were right behind. Were not far behind. Like I could see Jim. Yeah. And I was really bummed, like because I was like, oh man,
he made up 10 minutes on that climb.
I know, which is really impressive to me because I know how I ran in the lower half of it. I was like, if he was making up ground in the lower half, he must have been running so fast. I can definitely believe that he would have made up a bunch of time in the upper half because I was not feeling so good there. And you can really, when you're not feeling good on a climb like that, you can bleed a lot of time. But I also was still moving. Like I didn't feel like I was like blowing up, but I just could have been going stronger.
Yeah, I mean, you're still on sub 20 hour pace.
Yeah, I guess so. But so I was bummed that, it's like the competition is good, but you're trying to hold on the lead. So it's like, Oh my goodness. And then, he caught me descending. And then we got to Trient.
Was there any
almost the same time?
Was there any exchange there when he passed you?
Yeah, I just said like, I think I just said like, nice work, Jim, or like, good job or something. 'Cause we were doing that throughout the day.
Of course,
like, I think earlier, maybe when I had passed him, he had said something similar, I think.
I just think the fans of the sport would love to be a fly on the wall of that moment. Two great American champions.
It was very brief. Yeah. Like he was booking it. We were both kind of like booking it. And yeah, so it was a very brief exchange, but there was a little bit of an exchange there. And then we went down through, Col de la Fourcade, which was absolutely nuts. Raging. Like deafeningly loud. Like I might have ear damage after this race. Like Col de la Fourcade and Notre Dame de la Gorge were insanely loud. Like deafeningly loud. Like when like you get out of the tunnel of people and you're just like, I think my ears might be ringing. Like it was, I don't think it's ever been that loud in all my years at UTMB. Like I don't know what sort of like alarm they sounded for like fan recruitment this year, but it was nuts.
Yeah. Okay. So again, we could talk for 2 hours and I want to be respectful of your time, but eventually, Jim was able to build a gap and pull away.
Yeah.
We got to see you leaving Valorsine and obviously you'd had 95 miles in your legs at that point, but you're still moving super well. And, you close the loop in 1958, 59 and, make it interesting all the way up into the finish. And there's this iconic moment of you crossing the finish line, pointing at Jim. I'd love for you to just like, maybe tell us about the feeling, about the conversation that you had with Jim, understanding how much you guys were able to push each other to these historic performances. And of course there's always that storyline of Americans not being able to pull it together and you guys finished 1-2.
Yeah. I mean, it was a really special moment. Like you said, I mean, it was even in those late stages of the race, I was still trying to catch Jim, and when I crossed the finish line, I didn't even think to do that. Like pointing at him, like I didn't think preemptively. I didn't even know, you don't even know if he's going to be like sitting there. He might be off like taking a shower or something, you know what I mean? Like, he's in like 20 minutes before me. So, but no, I just kind of like, it was just very natural. Like I came up and I guess I must have saw him standing there. And I just like pointed. It's just kind of like, dude, like you stinking did it. Like you're the guy. Like you got it. Like, and we were out there together racing and like, we chit chat while we're out there, but I think there's probably this sort of like unspoken, like sort of like camaraderie of like, okay, look, we're both here for the millionth time at this race. We're both obviously chasing this same white whale. Like maybe you get it this year. Maybe I get it, this year. Maybe we both blow up like pretty much most years and neither of us gets it, like, but like maybe this is the year. Like maybe we both run out front and one of us, hangs on and then to be able to eventually run out front kind of together and then both hang on to finish 1-2 was very special. Yeah. And I mean, I think one of the things with racing is like, it's a great sign of respect to race someone with everything you've got. Mm-hmm. 'Cause that brings out the best in everybody. Mm-hmm. If I race someone, if I beat someone, I want to know that they gave me their absolute best. Yeah. And, and if someone beats me, I would want to give them my absolute best. It's sort of like this sign of respect. Like I'll give you my best and you give me your best. And then we'll see who is the best. It's beautiful. Yeah. And I think that's like what Jim and I were doing out there. Mm-hmm. And that drove to, fortunately a great day for both of us. We were both out there pushing and competing And when the chips fell, we ended up 1-2, which it was really special to be able to, like, Jim totally, very deserving of the win. He ran very well tactically. He was so strong over the final 2-3 climbs, really.
Yeah.
And, I tried to catch him and was unable to. And, like, hats off to him for, like, he was just so very strong out there.
Brilliant race.
And it's just very special to finish 1-2 with him in that race in that way. And I'm grateful for, like, all the effort and time and energy he put into being a part of that.
Amazing, dude. Final question for you. One of the things I've been thinking about and that we've talked about on our little daily show a couple of times is, through 2018, you had just this spectacular, career, you're world dominator. And you had 3 years on the shelf, and now you're back winning Tarawera, 6th in the world championships, sub 20 at UTMB. And I think it's really relatable for a lot of people who maybe go through long periods of injury or whatever, of just like, not giving up. And eventually, you can sort of come back from anything. Is anything you want to say to people out there who may be going through something similar? Because I don't know, to me, it's like, holy smokes, Zach Miller back on top of the world after a really long period of hardship.
Yeah. I mean, I guess you want to have something like very profound to say, but it's like, I'm also like a bit of a realist, I guess. And it's like, yeah, there are just some really crummy, hard times that you'll go through, like, in life and as an athlete. And I guess you just have to, like, you have to decide what's really important to you and what you really want. And if it's that important and you want it, you got to find a way to try and hang on and make it happen. Because like, there often is a way, or there is a solution. It might not look exactly like you thought it would. But there often is some sort of way. And like, if you're in that spot, like, hang in there, because I know it can be, like, very dark and, like, depressing and just a really rough spot to be. Injuries are no fun. But yeah, I guess, like, just hang in there and, like, stick to it, get the help you need. And just, like, hang on to what it is that you really want, or maybe in some cases you have to reinvent a bit, but, like, there is often, like, for as cheesy as it sounds, there's often light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah. Awesome.
And I had a long tunnel, probably not the longest tunnel. There's people with longer tunnels.
It's a long tunnel,
but it felt very long and dark when I was in it. And, so it is. And
there will be tunnels ahead in the future. And that's why it's important to savor this spectacular achievement. Yeah. Look, you can see I have goosebumps right now, Zach. Dude, congratulations. Thanks for coming in. Thanks for making the time. I hope you're super proud, and I hope recovery goes well.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Dylan. Thanks for having me on.
Appreciate it.